Hi, everybody, and welcome to a new edition of Newsmakers. I'm Jerry Roberts. It is Friday, June 7th, about a month before one of our two major political parties nominates a convicted felon. So all is right in the world. We are joined this morning by Gwyn Lurie, editor-in-chief of the Montecito Journal, Josh Molina, man of many hats, and host of the ever-growing podcast Santa Barbara Talks. Where we
got
wish
two more viewers, I heard, Josh.
Oh, stop. Callie Fozzie, all the best. She had a bail this morning. She's not feeling well. So we'll just soldier on with the three of us. Gwyn, I've been trying to get you here for a couple weeks to talk about the Giving List Women's Summit. We've talked on the program and elsewhere about the multiple revenue streams of Montecito Media LLC and the kinds of differentiation in the marketplace that you're doing. But this was a big deal. You had a lot of people in town for this. You had a lot of big names. What was the Women's Summit?
The Women's Summit, it's called the Giving List Women Inaugural Summit, and it launched the first national Giving List book that we have published that's going out to 150,000 people around the country. That is telling the stories of 50 nonprofits around the world that are moving the needle for women and girls, inspired by the pathetic statistic that less than 2% of all philanthropic dollars currently go towards organizations that focus on women and girls. And for women, less than 2%. It's somewhere between 1.6 and 1.8%. And for women and girls of color, it's drastically less. And yet we know that women and girls are by far, the most powerful lever for change in every area of philanthropy, including the environment, including social justice, especially social justice. And that means powerful lever for positive change for men, women, girls, boys. So what we're really trying to do is get the donor world to shift their thinking of women and girls from a lane in philanthropy to a lens in philanthropy. And we launched the book at the inaugural summit, which brought together 170 people in Montecito from around the world, including leaders of many of our partner organizations like the Gates Foundation, Lilly Family School of Philanthropy, Global Fund for Women, Philanthropy Together, Grantmakers for Girls of Color, the Annenberg Foundation, the Curb Foundation, the Linked Foundation, Women Moving Millions was our lead partner. We had, I'm forgetting a lot of organizations, Half My DAF.
So what was the takeaway?
Well, the takeaway's been incredible. I have to say I am really proud of my team and really happy that we're doing this, because I had dinner on Monday night at my home. What we did was the first night of the summit, we had 12 dinners around Santa Barbara, hosted by different philanthropists with 12 to 15 women at each home. So we had smaller, intimate conversations, bringing people together who had never met to talk about their work and their philanthropy and why women matter so much in this moment of trying to change the world at such a critical time. And so by the time they went to the summit the next morning, these groups of people had created these relationships and didn't walk in as strangers. And so it was a really powerful. Next day, we had Jennifer Siebel Newsom here. We had Kimberly Crenshaw here, who just
founder of Critical Race Theory.
Critical Race Theory and Say Her Name campaign, and major player on the Anita Hill, and really coiner of the importance of the term intersectionality, both in justice and in philanthropy. So it was a really star-studded group of my kind of celebrities. And and so anyway, on this past Monday night, I had a dinner at my home with all of the hosts of all the dinners, kind of thanking them, but also getting their input on how it went and how they felt about it. And Jackie Carrera, who is the head of the Santa Barbara Foundation, who was one of the dinner hosts, sort of made this announcement that she was really surprised to see that there is actually, since the summit, a measurable change in the number of DAF holders and donors who are shifting their giving towards women and girls.
Really?
And she said that was like very, not surprising to her that it was possible to move it in that direction, but the sort of, the rate at which it happened and the quickness with which it happened. And so, and all of the surveys we're receiving back from the summit are telling us similar information. So I think that really strengthens our partnership with Gates and other, you know, potential funding sources for us. And then the other thing, do you mind if I add one more thing?
Oh, real quick.
The other thing we're doing to sort of sustain this long-term is we're building an international women's marketplace online. So you'll be able to click on a country and support women all over the world, women entrepreneurs, women, because by the way, the same less than 2% number for philanthropy goes for investing in women businesses, even though the statistics show that you're much better off to get your money back plus investing in a female entrepreneurial venture than a male-led entrepreneurial venture. And I just want to point out, Josh, because we were talking about this before we went on, this absolutely is involving men and women together to do this. There were men at the summit, and the point is that we're really looking not just at pushing money towards women and girls, but rethinking the way leaders lead and thinking of patriarchy and the kind of techniques of patriarchy that are clearly not working. It's not just about men. Women are just as capable of patriarchal behavior. So we're really having conversations about what it would mean to lead with more compassion and to listen to each other and to stop canceling each other and talking over each other and investing in being right. And how do we solve some of the world's problems by, you know, doing things differently?
All right. Well, speaking of patriarchal behavior, let me bring Josh in here.
I should just leave and just let Gwyn have the 30 minutes because
No,
I think the show's just going to go downhill after listening to her talk. So
no, it's
from here.
no. I mean, you know, once again, I do have to say, just as a journalistic matter, or maybe the economics of journalism, that the Montecito Journal that sets the pace in terms of trying to find ways to not only do well but do good in the journalism space, such as it is left anymore. But Josh, apropos of this, as you know, Gwyn earlier this year received a big award from the Democratic Women organization here in town. And I know they had their big event this week, this Sunday, I think it was, with Senator Tammy Baldwin. And you've written a lot about them and kind of the shifting political dynamics of what's going on locally in Santa Barbara, and positing that you feel like the kind of the center of gravity of politics is moving away from the Democratic Central Committee and towards Dem women, who often are at odds, particularly about endorsements. Talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, and I mean, it all kind of blends together. I'll just suck up one comment here is I honestly, after Gwyn gave her speech at one of the Dem Women events, I had so many people tell me, Josh, why weren't you there? Did you hear her speech? You have to watch it. You have to hear it. And these are not like all of them like big fans of the Montecito Journal, just that this person spoke. And it was very powerful. And I think we're seeing acknowledgement and recognition of Democratic women of Santa Barbara County as being individuals who are absolutely important and essential to the future of our local political scene. And it's great to watch. It's incredible to watch as a journalist because you're seeing not just a small group of people decide for everyone else who the kingmakers are going to be.
That would be the Democratic Central Committee you are obliquely referring to. Yes.
Yes. And instead, you're seeing more inclusion. You're seeing people who feel like they have a home to be themselves and not to have to walk a tightrope of what they think they have to say in order to get endorsed or be accepted. And that's the platform the Democratic Women offers, is that it's Democrats, right? It's liberals, but it's a place for everybody, wherever you are at that spectrum, as long as you articulate your support for women, for women's issues, which, as Gwyn appropriately said, they're not just women's issues, these are men's issues as well. The patriarchy hurts men in terms of what expectations that there are for men as much as it does women, and so that is what's incredible. And so watching from afar, and I know there was the big women's luncheon with Tammy Baldwin over the weekend. Everyone was there. It was so impressive. I was not there. I was invited. My daughter had a recital. I really wanted to go, and I thought about doing it. But seeing the pictures that Ingrid took and all over social media, this was the place to be. This is the power base of local politics, and it is playing out. The idea that you need to get the Democratic Party's endorsement in order to get elected is obviously not true anymore. Look what Roy Lee did. And I'm a Democrat, and I like many of the people on the Democratic Central Committee, but they need a change. They need a shift. They need an overhaul. They need to be more inclusive because they're losing power. And ultimately, this hurts everybody, right? When they're so exclusive. And so Dem Women, it's incredible to watch. You've got Monique Limon, you got Salud Carbajal, you have Laura Capps, you have Roy Lee, who's at the event. You have all of these individuals.
Was Doss there?
All of these individuals coming together to say, we respect you. And it's
I didn't hear
okay if we
Josh's
disagree.
answer.
What's that?
No, I didn't hear Josh's answer.
I asked if
No, I'm
Doss.
kidding. No, I don't think so. No.
Well, I wasn't there, so I couldn't
Okay.
definitively
I
say
did
whether
not
Doss
see
was
him,
there,
yeah.
but
Gwyn was
I-
there. You didn't see it.
I'm
I would
sure
be-
he would have come up to say hi to me if he was, so he must not.
yes. So I just think that's really important to say, because we're seeing this shift where you can talk, you can speak, you can be yourself. You don't have to worry about retaliation. It's a place for acceptance, and it's the new power base. It's undeniable, and what they have been able to do there. And I don't want to take away from the years of them being in this organization, but this current energy of this group is very impressive. I had Suzanne Cohen on the show, and she talked about it, and it's you're going to want Dem Women to endorse you if you want to increase your chances of getting elected in local politics.
Yeah, Gwyn, you want to say a word about the event or this thesis of Josh's?
Yeah, I mean, well, first of all, it was a great event. Hannah Beth introduced Tammy Baldwin, Senator Baldwin from Minnesota, and did a nice job of interviewing her. I think what Josh said is absolutely right. And I think that Dem Women is riding a really important wave amongst the people and organizations I respect, which is saying we have to move away from the power being focused and concentrated in the hands of the few, and sort of asking the question, whoever said we all have to agree on everything to work together? We don't all have to have the same brain. We're not monolithic. Women are not monolithic. Men are not monolithic. Democrats are not monolithic. And if we don't begin to have conversations that are a little bit unpleasant, to leave our algorithms on the internet and get into our real lives where we're surrounding ourselves with people who are willing to have conversations and not just be a part of a club, an exclusive club that holds the power to make all these important decisions. That has not worked. That has pissed off many communities of people and created more divisions in this country. And I think local Dems are doing a great job. Dem Women are doing a great job. I think this is a group of not just women, mostly women, but not just women, and hopefully more and more not just women, of really thoughtful, intelligent people who genuinely care about trying to make the world a better place and not just about amassing power for themselves. And that to me is the key difference.
Yeah, and I think I think Doss's defeat was symptomatic of that. I think it finally emerged for all to see. And I have to say, my pet peeve about this, the power brokers in the Democratic Party saying Roy Lee's not a real Democrat, deciding who's a real Democrat and who's not a real Democrat. It's like, give us a break. So anyway, I think Josh,
it's not unique to the Democratic Party. I mean, it's the same in like kind of old school feminist circles. There's a group of people who like, this is the feminist perspective on Palestine, or this is the feminist perspective on, and there isn't one perspective. Yeah. And like, and you see feminist organizations crumbling under the weight of these, sort of woke conversations about whether to call it a person or a woman. And they're not getting to the business of fighting for reproductive rights, or not fast enough, because they're spending time on all these, in my personal opinion, less important arguments. So I think this is all going in a positive direction.
All right, look at that. Here, you tune into Newsmakers and get some positivity for a change. How about that?
And I'll tell you what Roy Lee is, Jerry. If he's not a real Democrat, what he is honest, and what he tells you to your face is also what he will say behind closed doors.
Yeah. Well, I wanted to ask you about another story that's unfolding in Montecito as well. Josh, you had a scoop this week about these videos that are being sent around. I've received them. I think others have seen them about some conflicts taking place up at the top of the Hot Springs Trail. And as we know, this has been a flashpoint of conflict over the parking for the homeowners and so on. Josh, you've written about it over the last couple of years. What's the latest?
There's a few layers to this story, so I might leave some stuff out, but let me just summarize, is that homeowners near the Hot Springs Trail very concerned by the fact that the trail is so popular and there's only 8 spaces that are legal. People park on the public right-of-way. There aren't any sidewalks in this area. And so they park in front of people's homes, near driveways, blocking visibility, accessibility. Some of these homeowners put out some obstruction, some planting, some boulders to prevent people from parking there. County sued them, went back and forth. Eventually, an appeals court said, hey, homeowners, you need to remove these obstructions, okay? Why is this so popular? The Montecito Hot Springs Trail has these pools, these bathing pools that people from all over the world come to. The pools are natural, but the actual rock formation, the boulders, they create these little circles. These swimming pools are not. There's a guy who goes up there and creates them, and people go up there. It's like going to the beach. They wear not a lot of clothes and they bathe in the pools. Then they take photos and they put them on social media. So it feeds off each other. Well, if you're one of these homeowners who your yards back into these trails, what they say is that people are dumping trash over fences, that people are taking lumber up there and starting fires, camping, and they have legitimate concerns in addition to the parking concerns. So there was this video over Memorial Day weekend where the pro Hot Springs bathing pools people collided with the people who want the pools removed, the bathing pools. And so I received the video. It's in parts. It's not complete. I don't feel like comfortable identifying anyone in it because I don't know what happened before or after. But what it does show is this argument where they're accusing each other of who has a permit to build the pool and who has a permit to remove the pool, and then F words, expletives, someone turns a camera to someone's face, they freak out, and it's really kind of an ugly scene. And it's kind of, when you think about Montecito and the stereotypes people have Montecito, it's quite, unfortunate that you have this conflict going on. What is the biggest problem? Government, right? Like they need to come in there and say, what's legal and what's not. Are the pools allowed? Are they not?
The National Park Service controls the site technically, do they not? Or Los Padres National Forest?
Well, the Fish and Wildlife said, we don't know anything about this, which is ridiculous. They didn't even get back to me. Los Padres National Forest said it's our jurisdiction. We are not permitting any new pools, but we're not going to go in there and remove them. This is infuriating to some of the homeowners because, as other people have pointed out, and I know it's a bigger deal, but when you're talking about Montecito ring nets and all the layers of approval you need to go through in order to do something in the creek, and then these people can just go in there and create something that disrupts the natural flow of water. They're like, how is this allowed? How is government able to do this and take a blind eye to it? And so there's all these clashes. Nobody is saying they shouldn't be hiking on this trail. Nobody's saying you shouldn't enjoy these hot springs, but they're saying, why are you allowed to create basically an attraction? This one person I talked to said it was like the base of Coachella, and and the hot springs like the stage, and so it's a big attraction. I would love to hear what Gwyn has to think, since she's closer to all this than I am and talks to many of these people.
Well, Gwyn, yeah, I mean, one thing, the Doss Roy Lee race, cannabis sort of dominated as an issue, but this was an issue that was kind of percolating in the background as well. I think there were a lot of people in Montecito who were not happy with the supervisor's outlook on this thing. Is it how big a deal is it to these homeowners?
I think it's a very big deal to the homeowners, but I also think it's symptomatic of a lot of the issues that Montecito is dealing with right now, including the Miramar. It's like, Montecito is kind of long defined itself as this kind of very low key but exclusive place. And I think with all these new people moving to town, and with Montecito kind of making it onto the map, sort of post-COVID Zoom town, a price explosion, which that's all connected, obviously. Look, I think many things can be true at once, and I don't mean to not say anything, but I think the homeowners have a good point. Like when you're talking about trash and being thrown over their fence, or trash up in the mountains and fire hazards, all that's real. And if you talk to, the fire chief, he'll tell you that's real. Like he personally walked up there last week to talk to these people. So it's a problem. On the other hand, it's part of the Los Padres National Forest. It's a beautiful natural preserve that people want to enjoy. And it's one of the things that makes Montecito special. And we don't own it. So, and it's the same with the beach outside the Miramar. It's like, Rick Caruso doesn't own the beach outside the Miramar, even though he got certain amount of frontage. That's been kind of this ongoing conflict. And obviously with the attempt to expand the Miramar, that's just going to bring more people to this community, and more people with extreme levels of wealth, and maybe from the point of view of some people who've lived here a long time, a different set of values. And I think that, again, many things can be true at once. All these people, tourists and whatever, coming to Montecito is good for the stores, and it's good for the restaurants, and it's good for the local paper, but it doesn't necessarily, it also flies in the face of what the people who live here love about living here, which is that, they think of this, at least historically, as this really low key place where you don't see a lot of Gucci bags walking down,
Right.
In the arms of people walking down Coast Village Road. And, the old kind of joke that the guy sitting next to you in flip-flops, you have no idea that he's a billionaire, and that's not necessarily true of some of the newer people who come to town. So I think these are really important issues on both sides. And it's not the Middle East, Jerry, but I do think that if we can't solve this, I think one of the roles of the supervisors is to create opportunities, I would hope, for people with different interests to sit down and find solutions that everyone could agree are fair. Because, we could all be dead right? It's like, you don't get to win 100% of these fights. So I think we have to find solutions, because we're not going to be able to avoid progress or learning about this place. So I think it's complicated. but I think there needs to be some really good communication between these different parties, which I'm not sure has happened to the extent that it should.
Yeah, Josh, you mentioned Roy Lee. Has he, you interviewed the homeowners, or at least some of them. Has he been in contact with them, or what's going on politically there?
There's a big meeting this Saturday at 10 o'clock at Cold Springs, and I believe it's Roy Lee basically
Roy
meeting
Lee.
with all of the neighbors. And I, on one hand, I don't want to keep beating up on Doss, but on the other hand, he absolutely deserves it, and he is an elected official, and we still need to hold him accountable. In my interviews with these homeowners and trail people, by the way, I don't know what this guy did. I mean, I have a sense of it, but the contempt that they have for him is so palpable, it's unreal. They believe he's on a revenge tour. They say, Doss never met with any of us on this issue one-on-one. And Gwyn, I'm sure, can verify this. She's closer to these people than I am. Ever. He didn't care at all. And in fact, he just sided blindly with the county and litigation on these parking spaces. And now, and by the way, Mr. Vehicle Miles Traveled, I think it's kind of rich that he's trying to create more parking spaces, when at the same time he's, tells everyone he's an environmentalist. But they said, I had people tell me, they will do everything they can to make sure he is not elected to state senate or any other position that he runs, because they hold these feelings of being neglected. They say Doss hates Montecito. Like, they tell me this, and he always has. And so they hold these strong feelings. He did send a letter in support of removing the bathing pools, which they're flustered by.
That's 180 degrees different than.
Well, it's arguing on kind of both sides and trying to please both sides, which is like the exact criticism of him. It's almost like he's saying, yeah, I'm going to do it and do it even more just to annoy people. And so there are people who are very unhappy with him, who are already trying to talk to Roy, who say, Roy is our supervisor. We're meeting with him, and they've given up on Doss Williams. And again, I don't like to see the guy in that position personally, but he needs to be held accountable for the fact that all these people are so angry and upset with him. And I just don't know why he keeps governing this way.
So weirdly, I think Doss misunderstands his role as supervisor. I know he doesn't intellectually, but I think that it's not about just having the power to make backroom decisions to make yourself feel better or the people you like feel better. It's about figuring out compromises that allow everyone to feel a little bit heard. And I just don't think he ever did that. I don't think he did that post debris flow, honestly. I mean, remember when he had that big meeting right after the debris flow and everyone showed up at the library and he said he was going to put together this committee where he could really hear? That never happened. We all filled out surveys. That was never, no one was ever responded to. I'm not saying he didn't do anything, but I'm saying the community did not walk away feeling heard. And that's your job as a politician, is that the people you represent feel like even if you don't side with them, you understand how they feel. And I don't think he ever does that.
Yeah. Well, not to go all meta here, but I think that's, when you look at the national political landscape, that's one of the issues, is that everybody on all sides wants government to do specific things and get the result, but they don't want to compromise about this. So the means by which government achieves things, people don't want to see.
People have lost an understanding of the value of compromise, and what
a dirty word.
And what some of us who really think about this believe is that there's real value to compromise. That's why extremes are so dangerous. I mean, they serve a role because they kind of provide the framework for the conversation, but the compromise is where democracy lives. So I think that, local communities are in a real position to model that. And I think maybe vis-a-vis our earlier conversation about Dem women, maybe we're moving, and Roy Lee, maybe we're moving back in that direction, which would be really good, I think.
Yeah. Gwyn Lurie, she believes in the perfectibility of man. Okay,
And women.
and women, sorry. I meant that in the broadest possible sense. All right, we got a couple of things real quick. We got to move. Josh, you scooped on that UCSB was going to move graduation with the Pup 10 Hamas demonstrations out there and all that sort of thing. They were worried about it, and then there's been a strike as well. But now they've moved it back. Speaking of compromise, what the hell's going on out there?
Well, they had decided to move, I believe, 6 of the 14 celebrations, graduation ceremonies from the lawn over to the sporting fields by the rec center. And they just put out an email. They weren't real clear as to why. They were just saying to preserve the continuity of the services and ensure safety. So they're very clearly concerned about some sort of protest. We do know that there are camps set up, and there's also a strike going on. So there's a lot of stuff happening at UCSB and several of the other UCs. So they just kind of put that out there, and it's very tone deaf. Like it's very
Yeah, and it just came out of left field. I mean, it was just a typical Henry Yang kind of deal.
You have to tell a story if you're going to change, if you're going to make any kind of dramatic change. You have to explain to people. You can't just put out an email. By the way, you're only going to get 6 tickets from your family. I mean, this is one of the huge things of our lives is graduating from college. So people inviting more than 6
And these are kids that missed their high school graduation.
Right. It's 4 years later. And so huge backlash, petition, got more than 1,000 people. And then yesterday they decided to reverse course. I believe they're still limiting tickets to something like 14, but more so than the original 6. I just think the UCs have handled the situation poorly in a lot of different ways in terms of their response. Not all of them, but the ones who chose to crack down, the ones who chose to sort of stifle things early rather than observe and watch them play out, I think made mistakes, and UCSB tried to correct it.
All right, and then we got
one of you guys, sorry, I was going to
Okay.
say, one of you guys should at some point, if you want, bring Anthony Rainey onto your show. Have you ever interviewed him, the superintendent of MUS? He's a really interesting leader who came to this town right before the debris flow. So it's like he sort of, but really emerged as a leader. And one of the things I think he does really good is making hard decisions and explaining to the community how he came to those.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you about that, Gwyn, in connection with the what's going on at the Santa Barbara Unified, where now the teachers have taken a strike vote. They've authorized a strike. They're involved in these long-running bidder negotiations with the district. You've been involved in school politics in Montecito. You were on the board there at the Montecito Union, right? Or Cold Spring. I always get them.
Montecito,
Anyway,
yeah.
but I mean, the teachers want 23%, which is a lot of money. And, the district has just, I don't know if tone deaf is the answer, but it's not been very effective at communicating, and it's gotten the whole town behind the teachers pretty much. I mean, how does somebody in a position of decision making in a school administration environment deal with something like that? What could they have done better?
Communicate. It's true. I mean, I think that Hilda Maldonado has the worst job in America. Like, I just think that is a really hard job without any commentary on whether she's doing a good job or not a good job. I think it's a hard job. I think that the schools are not in a great place, my experience. Personally, I think they're doing some really good things and trying to do some really good things, but I don't think that the management is in sync or the leadership is in sync with the teachers, obviously. Look, the budgets are finite, right? So if the money goes to the teachers, it doesn't go to other programs. So these aren't easy decisions. On the other hand, this is a district that spent, how much did they spend on that stadium at Santa Barbara High School?
25 or something.
I mean, it's like that was a decision, and budgets are moral documents. So I think that look, teachers, we all believe teachers deserve to be paid more, but there are, this state is in trouble because there are the pensions are breaking the state. I mean, that's not just unique to teachers, but there are lots of things that go along with these decisions on whether to give big raises to teachers. And that's a big raise that's being asked for. So I think this is not an easy decision. But again, I think that there needs to be some bigger conversation about where we want to get to as a district, because I do not think we're doing our kids any favors at the moment. And I think this started before COVID, but I think it got worse during COVID, and I don't think it's rebounded in a way that, so I'm not necessarily
Yeah,
saying
and then,
anything
that's
differently.
not even to mention the absentee, the spike in absenteeism, and which is again a national issue that's kind of got made worse by COVID. So
And the block system that they remain in out of COVID, which, you try to take world history in 8 weeks. It's just very hard to learn. Excuse me 1 second.
hey, Josh, let me ask you, along with this teacher strike issue, because there's what, 3 incumbents on the board, the school board, who are up for reelection this year. Do you foresee the teachers or their allies putting up challengers to those incumbents?
I think so. I think if you're an incumbent running for your reelection, that you should be worried, because there are businesses that support teachers with signs in their storefronts, people's houses, their yards. The teachers have a lot of support in this community. And if, being on a school board is tough, because you make enemies. If you make enemies related to kids and their parents and the families, it's hard to come back from that. It is very.
But also, you're always going to make enemies because everyone wants what's best for their kids, and no one agrees on what that is.
Yeah.
And no one.
Who are you
What?
holding? Who are you holding?
This is Joseph.
Is he new?
No, he's my nephew's, but he had back surgery, and so he can't jump, and so he's in this little crate, and he's not happy about it.
No, but he likes you. All right, we got to get out of here. Let me just to close with the sales tax, Josh. The council voted to put this half-cent thing on the ballot in November. Big fight about whether they ought to highlight, it's for emergency services or whether it's for housing. I don't think any of it's going to go to housing, or not very much. What was that debate about?
So the council voted to put a half-cent sales tax, take it to 9.25% on the November ballot. And they have a structural deficit. They have a $7.1 million budget deficit that shows it growing over the years. Gwyn mentioned pensions, salaries, employee personnel costs are a huge part of that. And so they're looking to raise the sales tax. Alejandra Gutierrez, Councilwoman Alejandra Gutierrez, voted against it. She says that it's not enough people in her district were surveyed. She's not certain there's support for it. She is in an election year, and she says that it would hurt the people of her district the most. Megan Harmon, by the way, who's a very liberal, progressive Democrat, she's opposed to it. She voted to let the voters decide, but she says it's regressive. And she said out and out, this money's not going to go to housing. The idea that it's going to housing is just not true. And so, but it's being sold that it's going to go to the housing trust fund. I mean, some of it will go to housing, but will it make a difference on the ability to rent an apartment or to build something? She says no, but they're letting the voters decide. There's a countywide TOT tax. It's going to be a big election voter turnout. The city's going to run a campaign. Randy Rouse, the mayor of Santa Barbara, is for this sales tax. So things are kind of a little upside down, but we'll see. We'll see how it goes. People tend to think, oh, what's a half cent, right? So, it could pass, but let's be real, Jerry. And I think you and I have talked about this. 80% of this is going to go to City of Santa Barbara employee salaries.
Yeah, and
Well, and that's always the problem, is fungibility, right? It's
yeah,
that has to be it.
and I'm telling you, people are cranky out there. People are not happy. I think this thing is going to have a lot of difficulty getting passed. Maybe I'll be wrong. Maybe I'll be pleasantly surprised.
Maybe you can write a last minute column the day before the election to influence it.
And
Jerry.
then, but only if Gwyn puts it out.
We're happy to put it in the Montecito Journal.
Yeah, exactly. All right. Gwyn Lurie, Josh Molina, thank you both very much. Thank you all for watching and for listening. And we will see you next time on Newsmakers.
Thank you.
Thanks, Chair.